Update: my brother proposed to my fiancée, his ex exposed everything to my family, and I'm furious. So, here's the scoop about my brother, Mark, and the drama that's been going on. I'm 28 and Mark is 26, we've always had this kind of distant relationship, you know? Anyway, Mark dated this girl, Jen, a year ago, for like a month. This was August 2022. He ended things because he wasn't into the whole relationship scene and just got bored, typical Mark stuff. I was living in another state back then, so I had no clue about Jen or that she even existed in Mark's life. Fast forward to October. I moved back home and met Jen at this bar. We totally clicked, she's seriously stunning and super smart. We met up a few more times, and before you know it, we were an item. By December, I was ready to introduce her to the family because things were getting real, you know? I casually mentioned her around Christmas time and showed some photos to my parents. That's when Mark saw her picture and totally lost his cool, yelling at me for dating his ex. I was like, dude, they had a brief fling, and it's over. Jen was honest with me about her past with Mark, and I was over it. For a while, Mark dropped it, and I thought he was done with the drama. But then, on Jen's birthday this year, I proposed to her during this fancy dinner with our families and her friends. Mark lost it again, full-on meltdown mode. My sisters and I shut that down quick. Last weekend, Mark invited us over to his place for dinner with the family. It felt a bit off, but since everyone was going, we figured why not. Dinner was chill, nothing major, and we were hanging out in the living room. Then, Mark gets up with this speech about family and drops to one knee with a cheap ring, asking Jen to marry him. Jen was clearly uncomfortable, and my dad jumped in to stop Mark. I got super pissed and punched him, not my proudest moment, but it happened. Mark claimed he wanted to prove that Jen was still hung up on him, which is a load of nonsense. My parents got me out of there ASAP. Since then, I haven't talked to Mark, and honestly, I'm worried this might freak Jen out regarding our future. She's been cool, though, and I'm not really worried she'll second-guess marrying me, especially after this stunt from Mark. I've seen some comments and wanted to clear up a few things. Jen and I are newly engaged, but we're sure about each other, even if it was fast. When we met, I made the first move, and I doubt she even knew about me being Mark's brother. Mark and I hadn't talked much before I moved back, just the occasional birthday text and stuff, so there was no way for Jen to know about our connection. When they met again, Jen was chill, not like she was super friendly or distant with him. Some people think I should have asked Mark if he was okay with me proposing to Jen. I don't feel like I needed his blessing for a 1-month-old fling, but maybe I should have been more upfront about it. Anyway, I'm planning to chat with Mark this weekend to hopefully sort this mess out. If there's anything worth updating about, I'll let you know. So, I told him I'd feel better if Jen was there for the talk too, but no biggie if he wasn't into that. He agreed to chat with both of us and came over around noon today. We sat in awkward silence for a bit until I kicked off the convo. I apologized for springing the proposal on him and also for hitting him. He was like, whatever, but appreciated the apology. I shared what Jen told me about their breakup and asked if it was true. I basically pointed out that his reaction seemed over the top, and I wanted to make sure I wasn't missing something about their relationship or downplaying it. He said they only dated for a few weeks and he broke up with her because he lost interest. Then Jen asked if he was acting like this because he still had feelings or regrets. He admitted she looked more attractive now but insisted he had no feelings or regrets. He said he just didn't like seeing a girl he dated, even for a short time, with his older brother, and as a guy, I shouldn't have gone after his ex. I reminded him I had no clue they dated, so it wasn't like I did it on purpose. He shrugged it off and said it didn't matter, I should have ended it. He claimed that if things were flipped, he would have done the same, but I'm not buying it. I asked why he proposed to her if he didn't have any lingering feelings. Basically, he said a buddy put the idea in his head that Jen might have known we were brothers and was trying to mess with him. He and his friend thought it'd be smart to test her by proposing and see if she'd ditch me for him. Jen asked why he thought she was hung up on him, and he said he heard she was asking about him after the breakup and hanging out at their old spots, so he assumed. Jen told him she only asked about him once after the breakup and was at those places with friends before they even dated. She was offended at the thought she'd pursue me just to get back at him. He shrugged and gave a lame apology but asked her to see his side. He asked if she really didn't know we were brothers, and she said nope, she didn't see the resemblance, and we don't act alike, so it never crossed her mind. He was like, okay, and then we wrapped things up. Before leaving, he told me not to worry about his wedding invite because he can't support our relationship. I told him not to sweat it since he was probably going to be uninvited anyway. It's been a few hours since our chat, and I feel better. My parents aren't thrilled about him being uninvited, but they get that it's a mutual decision and for the best. My sisters always thought he didn't have a legit reason for being a jerk, so they're cool with him not being at the wedding. Right now, I'm planning to keep my distance from Mark, and I doubt he'll hit me up anytime soon. Thanks to everyone for reading and commenting. I'll update if anything major happens. Why didn't she know about my family? Well, we didn't talk much about my family early on. I had moved away to get some space from them, mostly my parents, and only started patching things up when I moved back. When Jen asked, I was upfront about not being close to them, and she was okay with not knowing the details because of that. Quick update, after my chat with Mark, I've kept my distance. We only see each other at family gatherings. My mom's now upset that Mark's still not coming to my wedding. It kicked off during my younger sister Sophie's birthday party. Her boyfriend popped the question, and we all started talking about wedding ideas. Sophie jokingly asked if I'd care if Mark came to her wedding, and I just laughed it off, saying I can't control her guest list even if I wanted to. Then my mom gave me this weird look and asked, "So, here's the deal with the whole wedding invite drama." My mom got ticked off at me because I told her Mark wasn't invited to my wedding. She thought I was kidding and said I was being unfair because he's family. She even accused me of holding a grudge just to be petty. I reminded her that Mark and I had already agreed that he wouldn't come, and I told her this wasn't the time to talk about my wedding since it was Sophie's special day. If she or Mark wanted to chat about it, they could call me later. Sophie actually stepped in and told my mom off for trying to hijack her party with Mark drama, so mom dropped it. By the way, Mark wasn't at Sophie's party because he had to work. A few days later, my mom came over to talk about the wedding again. She asked why I was so set on Mark not coming. She mentioned that I shouldn't be insecure about Mark and Jen's past relationship and that uninviting him was over the top. I told her again that Mark and I had agreed on this, and if Mark had a problem, he could come talk to me. Things got heated, and my mom said if Mark wasn't invited, she wouldn't come either because I was excluding her son. I just shrugged it off and told her she could toss her invite if that's what she wanted. She asked if I was really okay with her not being there, and I reminded her it wouldn't be the first time she skipped out on my events because of Mark. She got mad, called me mean for bringing up past stuff, and stormed out. Then I started getting tons of calls and messages from her and some family members, saying I was wrong and should just invite Mark to keep the peace. My mom even messaged Jen to get her to convince me, but Jen wasn't responding. Most of my mom's side of the family decided to stick with her and not attend, but my dad, his family, and my sisters are still coming. Jen's family is coming too. I also talked to Mark again to see if he had changed his mind about not coming. He said he didn't understand why everyone was freaking out since he never wanted to come in the first place. He asked to be left out of the drama since he wasn't involved. Right now, I'm not talking much to my mom, but my dad and I are cool. I'm still on the fence about re-inviting my mom and her side if they change their mind, but it's not likely. I told my dad about this, and he gets it. Jan and I are now thinking about downsizing the venue since the guest list has shrunk a lot. Update, my mom's officially not coming to the wedding. About 2 weeks after saying she wasn't coming, she dropped by wanting to talk things over. We invited her for dinner, and Jen even made her a plate. I asked if she was still planning on skipping the wedding, and she said she wanted to come but couldn't get over Mark not being invited over what she called a simple mistake. I reminded her that Mark's mistake involved proposing to Jen right in front of me. She said it was just a joke. Jen asked why she wanted to talk if she wasn't changing her mind about Mark. Turns out, she was hoping to convince Jen to get me to invite Mark again, thinking I wouldn't be there. Jen calmly told her that she wouldn't have that conversation without me involved. Then my mom made some rude comment about Jen being unable to think for herself, which started a heated argument. Jen eventually told her to leave, but as she walked to the door, my mom freaked out and attacked her, pulling her hair and hitting her. I had to step in and throw my mom out. She banged on the door for a while before finally leaving and kept calling us. Once Jen was okay, I texted my mom to never contact us again. I called my dad and sisters to fill them in. My dad was shocked and tried to make excuses for her, but my sisters said they saw it coming since she's always had a wild side. They came over to check on Jen. I asked Jen if she wanted to press charges, but she said no, although she definitely wanted to cut ties with my mom for good. So, Jen's mom came over to comfort her, which is a big relief, so she's doing okay for now. Meanwhile, my mom is completely blocked on everything until Jen decides otherwise. I'm honestly at a loss for what to do next. Jen's really hesitant about going to the cops because she feels awful about the idea of someone getting arrested over all this. But my sisters and I think it's important to convince her to at least consider it. At the very least, we'd like to get some documentation done just in case things get worse down the line. A lot of people have commented that if Mark had just owned up to things and talked it out with our mom, we might not be in this situation. He totally could have, but I genuinely believe he doesn't get what taking responsibility means. He seems to think he's got nothing to do with our mom's actions, and nothing I say would make him realize that everything she does seems to be about him and what she wants. On November 12th, I commented back to someone who said we should press charges. Jen's still not keen on going that far, but after reading some advice and having a long chat about how this might spiral, she's agreed to get it on the police record just in case. She's also thinking it might be a good idea to talk to my dad about getting back into therapy or some kind of treatment for her erratic behavior. Plus, we're definitely going no contact. Just to give some background on why things are strained with my parents, Mark was always the golden child. He was my mom's favorite, and she wasn't shy about showing it. They'd spend loads of time with Mark, like going shopping while the rest of us got left with a sitter, or coming back with goodies just for him. He'd get all the cool new stuff, while my sisters and I got hand-me-downs or shared whatever we had. Whenever Mark messed up, I was the one who got in trouble, like when he was breaking toys, it was supposedly because he picked it up from me. If he screwed up at school, I got grounded for it. When I pushed to get an allowance at 13, they agreed but I had to do chores, and Mark got $10 of my $25 allowance just because. He never did the chores but wouldn't help me either. I started pulling away from him around this time, and by high school, we only talked when absolutely necessary. When I turned 17, I got a job to save for a car, and my sister Maggie helped me open a bank account. I bought my first car at 18, but my parents made me hand it over to Mark eventually, and when I refused, my mom threatened to kick me out. I had no choice but to sign the car over. When I graduated high school, my parents skipped it because Mark didn't want to sit through the ceremony. Luckily, my sisters and my aunt and uncle were there. Even when my parents tried to make it up with a dinner, I couldn't eat it due to my shellfish allergy. After high school, I worked 2 jobs to buy another car and eventually moved away for college, cutting off contact with them. They tried reaching out through social media and my siblings, but I never responded. I even threatened a restraining order for harassment as a bluff because I just had no clue how to actually get one. So, this whole thing started when I was only getting holiday texts from her after scaring her off. Around the time I moved back, Charlotte told me that our folks started seeing a family therapist because she asked them to. They were also ready to apologize for how they treated us, which was huge. I was super cautious but agreed to hear them out as long as they were sincere about it. That kicked off a sort of reconciliation when I got back home, but honestly, it doesn't even scratch the surface of everything they put me through. Letting them back into my life was a huge step. When I met Jen, I had no idea where things were going with her or my family. I didn't even want to bring up my family because I was ready to cut ties again if it came to that. Jen got it and didn't push me for more info, which I really appreciated. I hope this clears up some of the questions I've seen pop up. Like, I've seen stuff about why I didn't make reconnecting with my family dependent on them covering the cost of the car. Honestly, the car wasn't something I was willing to fight over because the damage was already done. It's still wild to think Mark was the favorite. He was just a regular kid, nothing special that made him the golden child. There were no fertility issues or anything, they just decided to love him more. I used to make excuses for my parents, but eventually, I had to admit they weren't cut out for having kids. As for an update, I really appreciate everyone's advice and support. Jan and I have gone through your comments together, and it means a lot. A common question is why I even tried to reconnect after everything. Long story short, it was for my sisters. Charlotte wanted the whole family there for her first kid, and I wanted to make her happy. Part of me hoped my parents had changed. I don't regret trying, even though they're still pretty terrible people. On the bright side, I met the love of my life, so I see it as a win. Some drama went down recently. We filed a police report after what happened with Jen, and even though she didn't want to pursue anything, it wasn't up to us. We had evidence of the assault, like pictures and texts. We were told to keep reporting any incidents with my mom moving forward. My mom flipped out on me, screaming about me ruining her life. She even hit me before security got involved. Luckily, my boss was super understanding about everything when I explained. I filled Jen in when I got home, and we decided to go no contact with my family except for my sisters. It's just not worth the stress, especially since we aren't even married yet. Jen suggested we might want to move to get some distance, and I totally agreed. I also decided to start therapy, and she's helping me find someone. I left a message for my dad about going no contact, and when he called back, he asked if my mom could join the conversation. I said sure, but things didn't go great. So, As you can probably guess, I ended up telling both my parents that Jan and I are cutting ties with them. My dad was pretty shocked and demanded to know why, especially after we had put in so much work to mend things between us. I told him that this whole situation with Mark revealed that nothing's truly fixed between us. It feels like their universe only revolves around my mom and little brother, Mark. I made it clear that their constant favoritism toward him has hit the point of no return for me, and I'm done clinging to a relationship that's just not working. I had initially tried to reconcile for the sake of my sister, Charlotte, but I'm just over the disrespect towards both Jan and me. I told them I'm not going to tolerate it anymore, for the sake of our own happiness. I was especially blunt with my mom, telling her I'm fed up with her blaming me for her crappy parenting decisions and Mark's bad attitude. I also let her know that I can't forgive her for what she's done to Jan and to my sisters and me growing up. She tried to tell me I should forgive and move on, like my sisters have, but I cut her off. I told her that she should just be grateful for their forgiveness because she's not getting any from me, especially after the recent chaos. When she started crying and acting like the victim, asking how I could treat her like that, I pointed out that if she's upset, she's only got herself to blame. Her reaction started another heated argument between her and Jan, who didn't hold back and told my mom off. I'm not sure if my mom left the room or just went silent after that, but she definitely stopped talking. My dad, on the other hand, said he didn't want to be shut out and asked me to see things from my mom's perspective. He said we're a family and shouldn't let past mistakes stop us from moving forward. I told him that the only people she seemed to care about were Mark and herself, and nothing he said was going to change my mind. I mentioned that it was up to him whether he wanted to keep my contact info, but I'd be blocking both him and my mom everywhere. After hanging up, I sent out a lengthy email to my whole family, attaching a link to some posts explaining everything, and uninvited everyone except my aunt, uncle, and sisters from our wedding. Writing that email took a lot out of me, and I ended up breaking down in tears, but Jan was there to comfort me, promising that we'd be okay. My sisters reached out to me afterward, and I apologized to Charlotte for not being able to keep up the reconciliation like she hoped. She understood and assured me it wasn't my fault. The response from my family has been all over the place. Some are mad that I aired out our issues online, while others are angry at my parents because they had no idea how bad things were. I finally spoke to Mark, and he asked if I was cutting him off too. I told him no, but I wouldn't be going out of my way to contact him either. He just wished me well with the wedding, and we haven't talked since. Now, Jan and I are on the hunt for a new place to live, ideally closer to her brother, who lives about 3 hours away in a city we both like. I've talked to my boss about the possibility of transferring, and Jan is exploring her options for remote work or finding a new job. We've had to change our wedding venue again since our guest list has shrunk, but my friend's considering letting us use his lake house, which could be perfect. I'm not planning to talk about this much more unless something drastic happens, at least until after the wedding. I want to move on with life, but I'll try to answer any questions in the comments. And yeah, my mom might try to track us down after we move, because she can get pretty obsessive if things don't go her way. I've even consulted a lawyer friend about possibly getting a restraining order. Thanks for the well wishes, and happy holidays. Oh, and according to Sophie, my mom has read a bunch of the comments and thinks strangers on Reddit shouldn't be judging her. I just wish them all the best, just from a good distance away from us.